The event of Karbala marks the greatest sacrifice for the sake of God in the human history. The minute and stunning details of this great event have been written and survived from the very first day by the eyewitnesses. The Battle of Karbala reflects the collision of the good versus the evil, the virtuous versus the wicked, right versus the wrong, and the collision of Imam Hussain alayhi salam versus Yazid. Edward G. Brown, the professor of Arabic and Oriental Studies at the University of Cambridge, praises Imam Hussain alayhi salam in these words: a reminder of the blood-stained field of Karbala, where the grandson of Apostle of God fell at length, tortured by thirst and surrounded by the bodies of his murdered kinsmen, has been at any time since then sufficient to evoke, even in the most lukewarm and heedless, the deepest emotions, the most frantic grief, and an exaltation of spirit before which pain, danger, and death shrink to unconsidered trifles. Before the Battle of Karbala, the world knew only the rule that might is the right. However, the day of Ashura introduced even more powerful rule in the world. The right is the might. Mahatma Gandhi writes, I learned from Husain how to achieve victory while being oppressed. According to the great poet Rabindranath Tagore, in order to keep alive justice and truth, instead of an army of weapons, success can be achieved by sacrificing lives. Exactly what Imam Hussain alayhi salam did. Thomas Carlyle explains, the best lesson which we get from the tragedy of Karbala is that Husain and his companions were rigid believers in God. They illustrated that the numerical superiority does not count when it comes to the truth and the falsehood. The victory of Husain, despite his minority, marvels me. Charles Dickens says, if Husain had fought to quench his worldly desires, then I do not understand why his sister, wife, and children accompanied him. It stands to reason, therefore, that he sacrificed purely for Islam. And Trent Barra writes, no battle in the modern and past history of mankind has earned more sympathy and admiration as well as provided more lessons than the martyrdom of Husain in the Battle of Karbala. Dr. K. Sharrik says, of that gallant band, male and female, knew that the enemy forces around were implacable and were not only ready to fight but to kill. Denied even water for the children, they remained parked under the burning sun and scorching sands, yet not one faltered for a moment. Husain marched with his little company, not to glory, not to power of wealth, but to a supreme sacrifice, and every member bravely faced the greatest odds without flinching. Mahatma Gandhi further says, my faith is that the progress of Islam does not depend on the use of sword by its believers, but the result of the supreme sacrifice of Husain alayhi salam, the great saint. Indian leader Nehru says, Imam Husain's sacrifice is for all groups and communities, an example of the path of righteousness. Dr. Radha Krishna writes, though Imam Hussain gave his life almost 1300 years ago, but his indestructible soul rules the hearts of people even today. Swami Shankaracharya says, it is Husain's sacrifice that has kept Islam alive, or else in this world there would be no one left to take Islam's name. The famous Hungarian Orientalist scholar Igas Goldziher writes, ever since the Black Day of Karbala, the history of this family has been a continuous series of sufferings and persecutions. These are narrated in poetry and prose, in a richly cultivated literature of meteorologies, a Shia's specialty, and form the theme of Shia gatherings in the first third of the month of Muharram, whose 10th day Ashura is kept as the anniversary of the tragedy at Karbala. Scenes of that tragedy are also presented on this day of commemoration in dramatic form. Over feast days or over assemblies of mourning. So concludes a poem by a prince of Shia disposition recalling the many miha of the Prophet's family, weeping and lamentation over the evils and persecutions suffered by the Ali family, and mourning for its martyrs. These are things from which loyal supporters of the cause cannot cease. More touching than the tears of Shias has ever become an Arabic proverb. The greatest British historian, Edward Gibbon, says, in a distant age and climate, the tragic scene of the death of Husain will awaken the sympathy of the coldest reader. Renaud's Alain Nicholson says, Husain fell, pierced by an arrow, and his brave flowers were cut down beside him to the lost man. Muhammad Taqi, which, with rare exceptions, is uniformly hostile to the Umayyad dynasty, regards Husain as a martyr and Yazid as his murderer. Sir William Ware, the Scottish scholar and statesman, says, the tragedy of Karbala decided not only the fate of the Caliphate, but of the Mohammedan kingdoms long after the Caliphate had waned and disappeared. Victor Hugo says, the principles of Husain's revolution become an approach to every rebel who wanted to take his rights from his oppressors. Koyana, Japanese author, says, the revolution of Imam Hussain enlightened the path of salvation to the oppressed, formed their attitudes, pulled them out of the misguidance, and cleared to their minds roads of justice. Nelson Mandela says, I have spent more than 20 years in prison. Then on one night, I decided to surrender, but suddenly I thought about Imam Hussain and Karbala movement, and Imam Hussain gave me strength to stand for right of freedom and liberation, and I did. The first president of India, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, says, the sacrifice of Imam Hussain Islam is not limited to one country or nation, but it is the hereditary state of the brotherhood of all mankind. Mrs. Sarojini Naidu says, I congratulate Muslims that from among them, Husain, a great human being, was born, who is admired and honored totally by all communities.